everybody, this is Eve West. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated predominantly to promote a book that I wrote. It's called Follow. It's an ebook. You can find it on Amazon.com under the Kindles tab. And I actually give a very holistic view of spirituality, not just looking at it from a metaphysical, psychological standpoint, such as, love and creativity, intuition, and those various things, but I also look at it in terms of, I guess you would say your reptilian brain, your physical aspect, which you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. So I explore different controversial topics such as race, money, sex. These are different topics that we typically stay away from within the Matrix environment. We're taught to really not talk about them because they're somewhat taboo, but they really are very integral to who we are in a spiritual sense. So if you're interested in exploring these various topics I speak about in my videos, you can click on the link in the description to purchase Follow on Amazon.com. This particular video actually gets into good questions, if you will, good questions about the Bible. The thing is that, when I was a little girl, my mom took me to church, and I was, programmed with the Bible. I was programmed with the Bible. But when my pineal gland opened, I really started to look at the Bible in a very insightful way, according to my pineal gland, as just opposed to the reptilian brain, which is the superficial level. But when you look at the metaphysics, of the Bible, you see that the Bible, really there's a lot of darkness concerning the Bible. There's a lot of dark aspects of it. A lot of suspect things, if you will. The Bible was taught to slaves. It was taught to slaves. All those slaves were forbidden to read. And, so it's really suspect that the Bible was taught to slaves, although they were forbidden to read. And the slave masters, of course, did not want their slaves to be free. So this, in and of itself kind of gives you, I guess you would say, kind of raises your eyebrows about, okay, what is it about this doctrine, that people would use, with a slave, if you will. People act like the Bible is something that will set you free, but clearly, they did not use it to set the slaves free. And so, because of that, you really start to look at the Bible in a different light. And also look at King James of Scotland, because King James of Scotland is my handler on the astral realm. He is the handler. He is the Antichrist, actually. That's the Antichrist that they plan on bringing in to take over the Matrix, or the Demiurge, or whatever you call it. And I know when people say, when I say things like that, people are like, okay, that sounds crazy. King James of Scotland is your handler. He's dead, if you will. Handlers from the astral, they consider themselves to be ascendant masters in the New Age. Ascendant just means dead, and master just means a slave master. So I would be considered his slave. And, the thing is that, in pop culture, we see different shows, like the Hollywood, I can't remember his name, I can't remember the show, but it's a little younger blonde-haired dude, and he's basically a necromancer. He actually consults with the dead, and he talks to various celebrities and so forth about their loved ones, and so, the things I'm saying are not, as far-fetched, if you will. Because as a targeted individual within the Matrix, the things that we say, people oftentimes shun us and treat us as if we are crazy, or we're saying something that's insane. But when you look at even the type of programming that we have on TV with necromancers, or people who consult with the dead or consort with the dead, whatever, we see that, we do have a connection to another realm besides this realm. And I don't agree with the programming of that Hollywood, I can't remember his name, but that necromancer or medium, or whatever he calls himself, because technically, from the superficial, you can't really consort with your family members. You can't really consort from a metaphysical standpoint. And I don't really want to get too much into that here. But King James of Scotland is the one who actually, runs this hellhole, if you will, this matrix environment. And so he is, considered dead in a way. And so, and looking at how how he's connected to the King James version of the Bible, and how the Bible was given to slaves, I really started to delve into more information about King James as I did my research, and seeing that he's responsible for writing a book called Demonology, which is based in black magic. And so the fact that this book is compiled by someone who is has dealt with black magic, and the Bible was given to slaves, if you will, who they wanted to remain in slavery. There's a whole lot of darkness surrounding the text. And so what I plan to do is going into the community and asking a lot of these preachers and pastors to see who will actually have the courage to talk to me and answer some of these questions concerning the Bible, because they're very good questions. They're questions in terms of, someone who considers the Bible to be a great thing. It would be difficult in answering these questions to say good things about it, if you will. Because there's a lot of, murder and theft and trespassing and all of these different things concerning this Bible. But, in a court of law, if we're a witness to something, or we're sworn to tell the truth, we put our hand on the Bible, although the Bible actually advocates all of the things, or most of the things, that we're brought to justice for. So that really in and of itself doesn't make a lot of rational sense. And so the Bible really goes along with other types of programming within the matrix that causes psychological splits, or what I call a division between Adam and Eve, or the conscious or the unconscious mind. And so, especially with media and entertainment, the Bible is a lot like it. Whereas, we're told that gluttony is it's bad to glut. And if we're overweight, we're shunned for that. Or if we have so-called health issues connected to weight, we're shunned, and said, you should control your diet and not eat certain things. But everywhere you look in the matrix environment, including media and entertainment, there's gluttony. When we see advertisements of foods, it's an abundance of food. Everywhere. When we go to the mall, everyone is trying to give you a sample of something. And so it really goes to show that, there's a contradiction that's fed into our consciousness. And because the fact that the brain absorbs everything, it doesn't pick and choose what it absorbs. It's just that some things we catch consciously as the ego, but most of the things we don't catch consciously, and it goes to the unconscious mind. It goes to show that we have two selves. And so one of our selves is indulging in gluttony, but the other part of ourselves, which is the ego, is more so trying to stay away from its nature, and to be more, to practice more temperance, if you will, as it pertains to the various 7 deadly sins, such as wrath. We're told wrath is bad, and if you act in an aggressive way, or if you kill someone or physically assault someone, then you go to jail. But everywhere I look, most of the TV shows that I see nowadays are full of wrath, full of violence. A lot of the I guess you would say video games and stuff like that, they are very lifelike, and you can kill people for hours. But if you kill someone in real life, then you are considered to be a deviant, a social deviant. And so you're brought to justice. So it doesn't really make sense, given how the brain works and the mind works, and how the unconscious takes on everything. It takes on everything. And so when you're doing this and you're putting things into our consciousness that are contradictions, you're really destroying the soul. You're really destroying the soul. And so I look at the Bible, in addition to other various aspects of the matrix, such as media, entertainment, and so forth, education, the familiar structure. I look at how that, they really work to separate the mind. And so I compiled some good questions that, churches, if you will, pastors, clergy, bishops, whatever, within the church, elders, deacons, what they would really say about a lot of the topics that I explore in my book. and that I explore in my channel and my videos. So, one of the questions, in looking at the first 5 books of the Bible, it talks about how Pharaoh hardened, or the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so he would not let the children of Israel go. And so, I was always taught, that Israel, that the Israelites were God's chosen people. And so he wanted them to be free. And so, that's why he took them from Egypt. But if he wanted them to be free, why would he harden Pharaoh's heart so they would not be set free? And so I really started to delve into questions like this and really see that, just really see that the psychological profile of the Lord, and how, this Lord really, took sacred knowledge, if you will, from Egypt, and was able to demonstrate that knowledge in front of the Egyptian magicians. And you can find this in Exodus. And how he did not, he hardened Pharaoh's heart so he wouldn't let the children of Israel go, so he could really demonstrate his power in front of the Egyptians. And so it really didn't have anything to do with the people themselves as much as it had to do with the fact that he had taken the sacred knowledge, and could really demonstrate it and to show his so-called power, if you will. And, although the Egyptians are demonized within Exodus, we see that the Israelites had it better when they were in Egypt. And so although the Egyptians probably did, maybe oppress the people somehow, in some way, they had more of a balance to where they, they took care of the people, they fed the people, and so forth. There are many places in the text where the people were like, okay, we could eat freely in Egypt. Now we don't have anything to eat. We don't have anything to drink. They're suffering from leprosy. So this Lord, took the knowledge and used it more so for his own selfish gain and the gain of his priests, as opposed to really giving back to the people, if you will. Instead of giving to them, he takes from them. And also he conditions them to take as well and to conquer various lands and steal people's stuff pretty much from their lands and take their people captive. And so, that would be a really good question. I would love to hear from a clergy, from a preacher, a priest, what they think about that question. Why did the Lord harden Pharaoh's heart so he would not let the Israelites go? So that's a good question. Another question that I have corresponds to why the Lord ordains the children to be mutilated and, their houses spoiled and women raped. Because there's a lot of genocide in the Bible where the Lord ordains little kids to be killed. When you think about kids are innocent, right? Kids are innocent, regardless of the scenario playing out within the Bible. They don't have anything to do with anything. But he's all about advocating genocide and killing, not just killing the adults or whatever, the men and the women of certain civilizations, but killing the children, especially the male children. And in some instances, killing them in very, I would say, horrible ways. Killing them in horrible ways that really show hatred. It's not like it's something that that you would think in terms of the Lord doing. So when you look at, for example, Isaiah 13, verse 16, and it says here, their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. And so the Lord here is advocating that, kids, people's kids be cut up into little pieces and people's wives raped and their stuff taken. And this is ordained by the Lord. It says, if you will, let's see, going back to Isaiah 13, verse 9, behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. And so, children are innocent. They're not sinners. In fact, in the Christian religion, I think that you don't start to take on sins until, you're 12 or something like that, they say. And so, clearly these children in of itself aren't sinners. But the Lord is ordaining things like this to happen to children, to be cut up into little pieces. And so this is not the Lord that I was taught. You know, when I was a little girl, I was not taught that the Lord is a Lord of, you know, of wrath and malice and so forth like this, you know, or just doing very malicious things, especially to kids. But, you know, it's funny because, like I said, King James of Scotland is responsible for, you know, compiling the King James Version of the Bible. And we see that Satan in the book of Revelation, you know, he's not dashed into pieces. You know, he's not dashed into pieces. In fact, he gets off, he gets paroled, basically, in 1,000 years. And this is, what is it, Revelation 20? Yeah, it says, in reference to Satan, Revelation 20, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. And then it says, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. So what I'm trying to see is that, you know, what's the difference here between in Isaiah 13 verse 16, where these kids are getting chopped up into little pieces, right? But whatever, let's say that there's, you know, the Lord has justification for, you know, taking over this land or what have you. But you're chopping little kids up into pieces, right? They deserve it, okay? Let's say hypothetically speaking. These kids deserve to be chopped up, and the wives deserve to be raped, okay? That's what this Lord is about. And, but Satan, you know, he gets to, you know, be in a bottomless pit and then let out in 1,000 years, be loosened for a little bit. It doesn't really make sense, because Satan is supposed to be the reason why we have such evil in the world, right? So why is it that he gets to, you know, to be paroled in 1,000 years, but these little kids get chopped up into little pieces and women raped? Doesn't really make a lot of common sense. And so, you know, these are questions, if you will, that clergy, you know, will not have the courage, I would think, to really respond to. And so, you know, in a lot of my videos I've talked about gang stalking, and the thing is when you start to be excommunicated, if you will, from the matrix. I mean, I talk about how I've been, you know, forced from jobs, and you know, how I've been treated inhumanely in different establishments and stuff like that. When you start to look at information, have the time to really look at information like this, you become a divergent, and so you become demonized. People don't really want to discuss these things with you. They, you know, they actually respond in very hostile ways towards you, just energetically. We're all about energy. We're all energy. That's why, you know, if you go to the hospital and something happens to you, they shock you back to life with a defibrillator, your electricity. And so really, to be honest with you, your frequency starts to change as your pineal gland opens. So you really start to see the metaphysics of the Bible, and how the Bible was used as a metaphysical weapon against slaves to you know, to accept a doctrine that would embellish their psychological mind by invoking fear. So really, overall, the Bible, metaphysically, used from a slave master point of view, or King James of Scotland, it was used to invoke fear. You know, when I went to church, and I was taken to church to learn the Bible, you know, it was to invoke fear, and also to program me to be the lighter part of the checkerboard floor of Freemasonry, because, you know, King James of Scotland is affiliated with Freemasons. And so it was to make me, you know, a very docile slave, if you will. You know, as an ego, I'm very nice, I'm very sweet, you know, very, what's the word, righteous and pious in a way, you know what I mean, like judgmental in a way, you know, and not so much now because I've woken up, but, well, actually, no, I can't say that. Even when I was asleep, I wasn't very judgmental towards stuff. Like, I had friends who were whores, and friends who did drugs, and friends who were gay, and, you know, I just had, you know, friends that, you know, were considered to be, in a way, societal deviant. So I didn't really judge. But when I say judge, I mean, like, if something was done to someone that was wrong, I judged them. I'm like, you know, you shouldn't do that to people, or disenfranchise people, or whatever the case is. I was always like that. But, you know, when you see that, you know, these things are brought, you know, to the forefront with your pineal gland, And people get very afraid who are wedded to the Bible and wedded to these churches and these secret societies and so forth that use the Bible as metaphysical weapons to keep you asleep within the matrix. So, there are just, so many different, I would say, verses and things like that and texts that really suggest that this Bible is not, what we believe that it is. And one of them is a book that wasn't really focused on very much, or if at all, when I was growing up. It was called Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon. And in Song of Solomon, it talks about a woman that's a prostitute. Basically, she's a black prostitute, and or concubine, whatever you want to call it. And she sleeps with the king. She sleeps with King Solomon, and she I don't know. She doesn't want the king to look down upon her because she's black. And so this kind of correlates a lot too to how the slaves were given the Bible. They were given the Bible, and as a metaphysical weapon to keep them in check. And so when I look at books of the Bible that were not focused upon in church, such as Song of Solomon, I really see how the Bible definitely is a metaphysical weapon used to target the mind. And the thing is that when I look at Song of Solomon and how this woman, she refers to herself, as one of the daughters of Jerusalem. And we see that Solomon is a king of Israel. It kind of makes me revert back to Moses and, the first leaders of Israel, the Israelites, or whatever, coming out of Egypt. Solomon, or King Solomon, would be a king, of a subsequent king, who descended from Moses and all the other kings of Israel, what have you. And so, in knowing this and knowing in Numbers how the virgin children were taken, if you will, from certain lands, such as in Jerusalem in Numbers 31, and how that correlates to the virgin, that is talking in Song of Solomon, it goes to show that they likely took those children in Numbers for sex, that they took those children to have sex with them. If you look at Numbers, if you look at Numbers 31, let me bring it up here. It says, and therefore kill every male among the little ones, and every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. So they're keeping all the women children alive for themselves. So you think to yourself, why would they keep the women children alive for themselves? Well, when you go to Solomon, Song of Solomon, right? So it's Moses and Aaron and them. They are, kings and rulers and priests, if you will, of Israel. But Solomon is a subsequent king. And so when we look at in Song of Solomon how this woman, she is talking about being a daughter of Jerusalem and how the virgins love Solomon. It is likely the virgins, or what have you, that they had captured, earlier, if you will, in the text. There's some connection there. It says so I'm reading from Song of Solomon, chapter 1. It says the Song of Songs, which is Solomon's. And so it says, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for thy love is better than wine. Because the savor of thy good ointments, thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love thee. So like I said, this correlates to the virgins, were the children who have not lain with men. I'll read that again. Because of the savor of thy good ointments, thy name is as ointment poured forth. Therefore do the virgins love thee. Draw me, we will run after thee. The king hath brought me into his chambers. We will be glad and rejoice in thee. We will remember thy love more than wine. The upright love thee. I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but mine own vineyard have I not kept. And so here it says that, this woman that, is brought into the chambers of the king to sleep with him, she tells him to, not look upon her because she's black. So she feels bad because she's black. Something's not right here. It's not right. And also we know Solomon is, is not black. It says that he has dove's eyes and he's quite fair. So we're going to go on and continue reading. It says, tell me, O thou, whom my soul loveth, where thou feedest, where thou makest thy flock to rest at noon. For why should I be as one that turneth aside by the flocks of thy companions? If thou know not, O thou fairest among women. Okay, so fairest among women, go thy way forth by the footsteps of the flock, and feed thy kids beside the shepherd's tents. I have compared thee, O my love, to a company of horses in Pharaoh's chariots. Thy cheeks are comely with rows of jewels, thy neck with chains of gold. And so, it's even alluding to, really, in verse 9, where it says, I have compared thee, O my love, to a company of horses in Pharaoh's chariots. So it alludes to Exodus here. So there is correlation between the book of Numbers and the women children who have not lain with men, who are virgins, in Jerusalem, and how they're connected to this virgin, or Israel, I should say, and how this, this woman, if you will, how she's connected as a virgin. She says how the virgins love thee. And so it says, thy cheeks are comely with rows of jewels, thy neck with chains of gold. We will make thee borders of gold with studs of silver. While the king sitteth at his table, my spikenard sendeth forth the smell thereof. A bundle of myrrh is my well-beloved unto me. He shall lie all night betwixt my breast. My beloved is unto me as a cluster of camphor in the vineyards of Engedi, I believe that's how you pronounce it, Engedi. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes. Behold, thou art fair, my beloved, ye pleasant. Also, our bed is green. And so here she keeps saying that he has dove's eyes and thou art fair. So he's not black, he's fair, and people who are fair are white. So, and she does not want him to look down upon her because she's black. She says how the virgins love thee, right? So clearly here in Song of Solomon, we see that this woman is having issues in terms of her race. And so the fact that the Bible is used, on black people and taught to black people, who were slaves and, who were purposely kept in bondage. This is a problem. And it's also a problem that this book, has not been really focused on. And the thing is that when I was growing up and going to church, a lot of things went into my unconscious, but it was like, church was so boring, and it was intentionally boring because most of it was supposed to bypass my frontal cortex and to go into my temporal lobe, to where I was programmed, and I heard, but I didn't hear. Your unconscious is everything that gets filtered into your consciousness, but you don't really consciously, you're not aware of it. It's just purposely put there. And so, when I examine the Bible with my frontal cortex and looking at these various, parts of the Bible, no one can really, really explain why something like this would be in here. Why a black woman who's a virgin of Jerusalem, daughter of Jerusalem, a virgin, would actually have to, sleep with a king, and she doesn't want him to look down upon her because she's black. why would that be in the Bible? Why would something like this be in there? This is something that is supposed to teach people to live and so forth. It doesn't really make a whole lot of common sense. And so, these are questions that I have for, people within our community, our pastors, our deacons, our elders, just to like explain, why we have these certain Bible verses. Why is the Satan able to get a pass and little kids get chopped up? Why is God's chosen people, kept in bondage? Because he made it to where, Pharaoh would not let the children of Israel go so he could flex in front of Pharaoh. It just paints a very different picture of what we've been taught about the Bible and about the Lord himself. There's so many different contradictions in the Bible that create double-mindedness. Let's see. So, looking at, let's see. Oh. Certain questions like for example, in the book of Numbers, where the Lord tells Moses to go ahead and number Israel. So, I was always taught as a child that the Lord is supernatural. So since the Lord is supernatural, why does he have to have Moses count the people in Israel and kind of section them off, or do a census, if you will, within a camp? This Lord that I've been taught that is supernatural is not supernatural. He's not a god, really. He's just a man. And so oftentimes Lord is referred to as king. And so this correlates a lot to monarch programming or mind programming, or some people call it MK Ultra. Whereas, correlates to kind of to that movie Eyes Wide Shut, and how it focuses on the elite, which is composed of monarchs, and how those are the people who are responsible for governing our matrix environment. And so Lord is just another name for king. But I was taught as a kid that this king is supernatural. I was taught that this king is, can heal and do all these different things. But we see here that this king doesn't heal the people when they catch leprosy. He just quarantines them off, or he just has them, separates them and makes them clean and adhere to, I would say, very sanitary conditions and stuff like that. As opposed to, showing his divine power, if you will, to heal the people. So, I want to point things out, such as the story with Esau and Jacob, because the Israelites are supposed to be descendants of Jacob. But this Lord, and we all know the story of Jacob and Esau. Esau is the elder. And so the thing is that Jacob and Esau are twins. And Rebekah, their mother, was told by God that the elder would serve the younger. So Esau would serve Jacob. And so we see that when Isaac, their father, is getting close to death, then he looks to bless Esau and give Esau his inheritance. So he tells Esau to go and cook him some venison. And, so, he can, bless him, if you will. I guess it's like a last rites thing or something like that to bless him. And, Rebecca overhears what's going on. And so she becomes shady, and Jacob becomes shady. In other words, she has Jacob dress up like Esau, because Esau, is really is symbolized as being black, as being a black man. So he is, hairy, and he's symbolized as being a worker of the land and so forth. And Jacob is just a keeper of the sheep, and so he's different. He's smooth, and so it's basically she gets a premonition from God that these two people, or what have you, these twins would symbolize two nations competing, within her womb. And so she decides, instead of having Esau get the inheritance, that Jacob would get it. And so she dressed Jacob up like Esau, and she cooked up the venison the way that she knew that her husband wanted, and had Jacob give it to Isaac instead of Esau, then she would just think that, Jacob is Esau, and would bless, Jacob instead. And so, when Esau comes back with the venison, like he had been instructed to do by his father and all of that, his father said he already gave the birthright to his brother. And so, the brother basically stole his birthright. And so this God, that spoke to Rebecca, you can see that how this God, kind of put that into play. Your birthright means that there's something that's rightfully yours. But although it's rightfully yours, someone came and took it. So it's your right to have this. But we see that it's been stolen. And when we look at certain books of the Bible, like Obadiah, it goes to show that this Lord really glorifies in how Esau's inheritance was taken. And so it paints a picture of this Lord being against Esau for whatever reason, and really perpetuating the whole idea of taking Esau's inheritance. It really doesn't make any sense. If you read Obadiah, it says, "The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord God concerning Odom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle." So this is a vision of the Lord now, okay? So it says, "Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, Who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and thou set thy nest among the stars, thence, will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee, and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord, even destroy the wise men of Odom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau? So, here, it's talking of Esau being cut off. It says, "And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter." And so, saying that, everyone cut off by the mount of Esau be slaughtered and killed for the violence against the brother Jacob. Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Because, once, Esau, and the story of Esau and Jacob, once Esau got wind of what Jacob had done to him, he, goes to destroy Jacob. And so this Lord is actually advocating on Jacob's side as opposed to Esau's side. But Esau is the one who had the birthright and got the birthright stolen. And it's funny because it paints a really shady picture of Jacob. Because, Esau, like I said, was one that worked in the field. And so, in working in the field, Esau would be hungry. And so, when Jacob, a keeper of the sheep, saw that he was faint and working in the field, because, when you work, you're hungry. And so, he was like, well, you know what, sell out your birthright. If you sell me your birthright, then I'll feed you. And so Esau's like, I'm tired, basically, it's faint. And so he, I guess functioning from his reptilian brain, he needs food. And so he sells out his birthright. And so we see here that this Lord in Obadiah, and also this God that actually, gives this premonition, if you will, to to Rebecca about, how the elder would serve the younger, and, basically, you know, orchestrating this plan to where something would be stolen that is not, that is not Jacob's. You steal a birthright. A birthright means that this is yours. But if you steal something that someone else is in the Lord, and Obadiah, in the Lord, and or this God in the story of Esau and Jacob actually, allows this to go on, and really, gives a premonition, if you will, to Rebecca about what would happen. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And in this story, Esau is associated with being black, and Jacob is associated and symbolized as being white. If you look at the theology, and the research surrounding the story of Esau and Jacob. And so this correlates a lot to the Bible as well, in how the Bible was given to slaves, or taught to slaves, I should say. And it wasn't given to slaves to read, because when you actually read the Bible, you really get to see what it's really about, as opposed to when someone is telling you something, like when I was brought to church as a little kid, it goes into your temporal lobe. And so there's a lot of things that actually get past you, as opposed to, really consciously looking at these stories and seeing them for what they truly are. And so, I have a question, regarding that. Why would the Lord of Obadiah, really advocate, Jacob, and be in favor of Jacob, who stole Esau's birthright? And, why would this Lord be an advocate of stealing anything? This Lord ordains the Israelites to go and steal people's lands and stuff like that, and steal their stuff and take over their lands, and trespass upon their land, and kill people. Why would this Lord advocate that? I was taught too that, there's just one Son of God, and that's Jesus, from a literal sense. I was taught. Now I know, since I've woken up in the Matrix, that I know what Jesus stands for. But I was taught that, Jesus was the Son of God, his only begotten Son. However, there's scripture in the book of Genesis to suggest that, there's more than one Son of God. Actually, it's Genesis 6. Genesis 6, 1 through 2. It says, "And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And so it talks about there were giants on the earth then, and so forth. So why is it here saying that they're sons of God, and that they took daughters of men? So clearly there's a difference, a discrepancy between the sons of God and the daughters of men. So gods and men are different. And so here, we see that there's, I guess what you would call a splicing, if you will. And so this kind of really factors in a lot to the occult origins of human beings, if you will, how humans are demigods. We have a physical, fleshly self. We also have a spiritual, godlike type self as well. And so, but to be taught that there was only one Son of God, which is Jesus, but to see that there are multiple sons, doesn't really make any common sense. What would they say in terms of that? Also, about free will. We're always taught in the Matrix environment that we have free will. But, when you get into free will, what have you, free will is like a choice. You have a choice about what you want to do or what have you, or, what you want to, what you want to accept or what have you, what you want to have. But the thing is that within this Matrix environment, do we really truly have free will? Do we have free will? In the book of Deuteronomy especially, the Lord, talks about all these plagues and curses that'll come upon you if you don't obey his commandments. And it talks about how, if you don't adhere to what he says, that, he's going to cause nations to come upon you, and you're going to resort to eating your children, cannibalism. You know, if you don't obey his commandments, then he's going to cause another man to lie with your wife, basically sleep with your wife. um, if you don't adhere to what he says, he's going to cause, sicknesses and things like that to come upon you if you don't obey his commands. And so really, when you look at that, is that free will? Do you really have a choice? You have a really conscious choice to say if you're going to obey God's commands or not. And then there's a contradiction too when you get into the book of Romans. And the book of Romans actually talks about how the it talks about how the commandment itself rots in you a kind of whorishness, if you will, concupiscence. I guess, it subjects you to sin. The commandment subjects people to sin. And so, when we look at, I want to say it's Romans chapter 7, I want to say. Let's see. So, I'm sure I have it here in my history, but Romans 7:1. Yeah. And it says, but sin, this is Romans 7:8 actually. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead, and for I was alive without the law once. But when when the commandment came, sin revived, and I died. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me. And so, really, this kind of goes into a lot of New Age literature and topics such as the Kundalini, how it's a very sexual energy. It's a masculine sexual energy. And it, whenever you're restricting consciousness, if you will, it builds up Archon energy. And one thing about us, we are built to be limitless beings. And so when you're restricting us and you're telling people to, adhere to these commandments and things like that, you're not embodying the Christ aspect of you. It's just the spiritual, the psychological, what's right and pious and righteous and so forth. But there's another aspect to who we are as well, which is that reptilian brain. And so when you're forced to do something that you don't want to do, or you're forced to do something because you're afraid, it breeds a type of sexual immorality. And what you would consider to be sin. And so the Christian religion in and of itself is really designed to do that. It's a very unholy religion. And it's so funny when I was watching, when I was watching the documentary on Pope Francis, and he talks about how, they plundered the earth, how they've plundered her or plundered the land. His organization is all about plundering the earth. And when I say the earth, I don't mean the celestial body, which is an illusion. The celestial universe is an illusion, but the body, because the church, Christianity in and of itself, is all about the psychological mind. It's all about the spiritual. It's not about the physical. And so whenever you are pushing the psychological mind, and especially in saying be good and righteous and love thy neighbor and all that stuff, and you are invoking fear and the people to fear God and adhere to commandments and things like that because of fear. Like within our matrix environment, we're adhering to commandments and rules and laws because of fear. We're not really doing what we want to do because we're told that if we do certain things that we're going to be, reprimanded, put in jail, whatever the case is. That is Archon energy that wants to be free and limitless. And so, our churches, for one, our religions, they advocate this. And it breeds concupiscence, or I guess you would call raw sexual energy, because it's sexual because it's located at the solar plexus, and your solar plexus is the place of your will. It's the seat of your will. And so that's why in the book of Genesis, when it says that Adam and Eve are separated, this is what basically creating Homo erectus is, or a homosexual. It says that the Antichrist will be a homosexual. And so that just means that it will be someone who's absent of the an unholy being, if you will. You know, Adam is reptilian, but Eve is feminine. And so, you know, whenever you are disintegrating and separating Adam and Eve, or the masculine left and the feminine right brain, or the conscious and unconscious mind, whatever you want to call it, it's going to breed demons, if you will. You know, it's going to breed demons, because there's an aspect of the being that wants to be set free. It wants to be able to express itself and do what it wants to do. You know, and so the Roman Catholic Church and the church itself, the whole religious construct of the matrix, is designed to prevent a human being from doing the things that it wants to do, which creates what we call a slave mentality. And that's what keeps us, you know, coming back into the matrix and being reborn over and over again, dying and then, you know, being reborn. You know, this kind of goes back to the scarab beetle, if you will. You know, the scarab beetle is the dung beetle. You know, it rolls poop until it actually, you know, becomes reborn as a new beetle. And so really that's what happens to us in the matrix environment. We get rolled, you know, we get basically reborn with poop. We get a whole lot of stuff shoved into our consciousness, and a lot of filth that we are made to feel bad about. And we are brought to sin and brought to judgment. We're brought to judgment about them as sins. And we get, you know, back into the slave system. And that's a travesty. You know, it's very hypocritical. One thing I don't like, you know, I don't like liars, but, you know, I can deal with liars, because some people, they lie because they, you know, they need their needs met. Maybe, you know, if they don't lie, they can't eat. Or if they don't lie, they can't, you know, sleep, or whatever the case is. I don't know. But when you're lying and you're a pathological liar and you're a hypocritical liar, and your organization breeds concupiscence and sexual immorality, and, you know, you have molestations and stuff like that, because you're not having people honor their earthly as well as their spiritual, psychological, metaphysical, etheric self, then I have a problem. I have a problem. I have a problem with you. And you need to be brought to judgment and brought to justice about what you really are, which is a liar. You are a liar, and you are an abomination. So, you know, I really just wanted to focus on, you know, some, you know, good questions, if you will, in the Bible, you know, and just to see what our you know, the pious, righteous, you know, priest, if you will, of our matrix construct, you know, what they really have to say about these good questions, and how they factor into, you know, our society and the makeup of our matrix environment. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.